Dara Fitzgerald. I'm the Executive Director of Fulbright Commission, and I'm here with some colleagues from the HRB and from some fellow Fulbrighters, and Rowan Gallagher also from the Fulbright Commission. So we're really just here to talk about why a Fulbright Award is of relevance and value to some of the people on the call, or hopefully everybody on the call. Okay, a little bit about the program. It was set up by J. William Fulbright, Senator Fulbright, back in 1946. The rationale for setting it up was that over the time after the Second World War, Senator Fulbright and many people at the time were absolutely, the abhorrence of what and the shock of what had happened during the war and the awful atrocities that happened during the war, kind of shocked people, and they felt that, a lot of these things happen because people they were viewed as them and us. So they felt that it's an engagement process that needs to happen globally. So you need to understand, if you understand your neighbors, then you're less likely to treat them as things, you're going to treat them as people. So we thought to have to repurpose a lot of funding or potential funding available after the war, selling on American Army surplus as well in different countries, anything that really could get its hands on to set up this program. Initially, his very ambitious program was to set up an exchange with up to 8 countries. It was phenomenally successful. We're now up to about 180 countries. In 1957, Ireland was one of the countries that was invited to join, and we did so. It was through a different government sub-department. And in 1991, then, like many other commissions, were actually set up to be an autonomous commission to run this program. So the Ireland United States Commission for Educational Exchange, and it was written into Irish law. And the commission has been operating the program and a number of other programs since 1991. And as I said, in 2021, we're in 180 countries. So it's a very global program. Obviously, it has a good name and it's a prestigious program. But I think one of the interesting things is that it's very, very global. There are people all over the world who call themselves Fulbright and have an interest in this. So it's not just a message that goes out to a small group of people. It's a message that touches for many, many people across many countries. So we are looking for people who are passionate and accomplished, and all of those, there's a broad definition of that. And that's something we want to stress again today. And I think when I talk, when I introduce Anne from the HRB, she'll follow up on that as well. Today, I suppose we're more specifically targeting through this award. It is a scholar award, but if anybody's here that really would qualify as a student level, this award can be for you as well. So it's a scholar and professionals. And I guess I've highlighted both of those aspects, particularly the professionals, because we're very much encouraging professionals to also join and consider applying. Many do, and many are successful. So if you have 5+ years of relevant professional experience, you would be eligible. And it's, well, we're talking about more healthcare, but again, what feeds into healthcare these days, it comes from so many different disciplines and backgrounds. So certainly don't exclude yourself on the basis that you might consider yourself a healthcare worker or a healthcare researcher, because you may be feeding into those areas. But your opportunity then is to do research or to engage in some study in the US. It could be formalized or it could be informalized study. You could be teaching and lecturing in the USA. Teaching sometimes is for Irish language teaching, but you may be giving lectures as well in the United States. So it's an exchange program between Ireland and the US that we're talking about. Big part of the program is less about what you're doing, but the experience that you have and the engagement that you have. It's a cultural exchange program, so it can be lifelong. With many people, and Colin and Olga, who are on the call here today, and they are Fulbrighters, and they're engaged, and they're still engaged with the Fulbright program. It is recognition. It's a recognition of success. It is a big deal. And it's very well recognized. It's well recognized in Ireland, and it's very well recognized in the US, and it's a global program. So it is something that translates globally. So you are joining a global peer. Hopefully, one of the aspects that comes through today is that Fulbright considers itself a family as well. So it's of people who are like-minded, people who are interested and engaged and passionate. So it's not just here's your funding, do the research you're going to do, or the teaching, or attend the course you're going to do. It's actually so much more than that. That's why it's lasted so long. It's because it's about engagement, it's about people and what the value they can bring and the value they get from the program. What do the awards provide? Well, the obvious one would be a monetary grant. Then there's visa administration, which sometimes isn't inconsiderable, particularly in these days. The award managers are certainly earning their money to manage all of that administration at the moment. There's an accident and emergency insurance. A big part then is cultural and professional programming, both here and even more so in the States. So you can engage at different levels. Sometimes it depends on exactly when you're going out and how long you're out for, how much of that you get, and some of it is driven by yourself. There is an ongoing support linked to a global network of Fulbright alum through things like Fulbrighter app program, and then through ourselves and through the Fulbright in the US and through the Alumni Association. So there's a lot of opportunity to link and to remain connected and part of the family. So I wanted to introduce then just to have somebody who's been there, done that, and that's Professor Colin Bradley. So Rowan, if you could share Colin now.
Okay, I can get my screen up here now too. And again, thank you very much for this opportunity to share what was a wonderful experience being on the Fulbright program. Apologies now, is this coming up properly? Yeah, and so as again has been noted just above there, that I spent some time in the US on the Fulbright in late August, from August 2017 to February 2018. To just talk a little bit about myself, first of all, to say where I've come from. So basically, my own discipline is as a GP or family doctor, as we call it in America. I've worked in Manchester and Birmingham, the UK, and then for the last 25 years or so in Cork and UCC. I've been involved as an academic general practitioner, teaching and researching for the last 30 years or so, of which, again, say the last 25 or so have been in UCC. So I was coming from a perspective in terms of my research around the topic of uncomfortable prescribing, or what might be called problematic prescribing for GPs. And under that broad banner, I've done some major projects around antimicrobial prescribing, benzodiazepine prescribing, and more recently around polypharmacy, or the prescribing of multiple medicines to people with multiple health problems, which is a particularly challenging area for general practitioners now. So as I say, that was my sort of research background, as it were. And then I became interested in Fulbright, really sort of dabbling on the edges, I'd have to say, for some years, knowing about Fulbright, hearing of people in Fulbright, but I didn't really know what was involved until I got into more detail, talking to colleagues. And in particular, then there were a few colleagues that sort of had a seminal role, if you like, in my choosing the project that I did, and eventually applying for and succeeding in getting the Fulbright scholarship. The first was this Professor Lizelle Benfield, who was actually a Fulbrighter who came to visit UCC. She was in the School of Nursing and Midwifery in UCC on a Fulbright herself. And it was very useful to meet with her and talk with her about the Fulbright. And one of the things I'd encourage you is to try and identify Fulbrighters, as I say, that you might talk to about the program before you apply. And I've also spoken to a number of Fulbrighters, of course, in Ireland as well. And say that was very helpful in terms of getting my thoughts together, deciding on to apply and what to apply for. And in my case, I applied to do some research in the health area. So when I was looking at sort of my broad research theme around problematic areas of prescribing, I then came across statements from the then Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Vic Murthy, who was very sort of strident in pointing out that the United States at that time were facing what he described as an opioid crisis, where there was a lot of overprescribing of opioid medications, which were then leading to major problems in their health of the population. And in terms of choosing where to do my research, then obviously Professor Benfield, having come from Oklahoma, was able to highlight that institution for me and identify people there. But I was already aware of, in fact, this guy here, Jim Mould, who was a research professor in the Department of Family and Preventive Medicine in the University of Oklahoma. And I already knew of him through my own prior connections in international research in my field. As it happened, though, by the time I got around to applying, Jim had retired from Oklahoma, and then was linked in with his successor, who was Professor Naga Kennedy, who, as I turned out to be, again, a tremendous help. And I suppose part of the process as well was working with him to work out a suitable research project, to work out the details of what I would do when it came to Oklahoma and how it fit in with their existing research. So again, I think it's important to make those connections and to build up your research thoughts, or indeed if you're going to do teaching, to link in with people in the US and as part of your preparation to apply for a scholarship. Where I went to then, as I say, was the University of Oklahoma's Health Sciences Center. Now, the University of Oklahoma itself is based in a town called Norman, which is about 20 miles south of Oklahoma City, but the health research facility at the Health Sciences Center is actually based in Oklahoma City itself. And as I say, I constructed with them a suitable research project. Again, applying for the particular Fulbright option that I did in collaboration with the Health Research Board. Then, as I was encouraged to identify a project which would have relevance to both my hosts in the US, but also would have potential relevance back here in Ireland. And so we identified, as I say, opioid prescribing and reducing opioid prescribing as being a potential research theme. And interestingly, as I said, they had a major problem with it throughout the US, Oklahoma being one of the sharper ends of the whole problem in the US. But in fact, when I looked into the issue in Ireland, it is also clear that opioid prescribing was beginning to escalate in Ireland, and has indeed continued to do to some extent. So just I was able to make the case that, you know, it would be also relevant in the Irish healthcare context to be alert to opioid prescribing and how we might make sure that that continued to be appropriate, and we didn't get into the same kind of epidemiological issues, if you like, to have in the US. So, as I say, in terms of preparation, there were a few things that I did. I had to make an application, and one of the things why I've highlighted sort of Seamus Heaney here is on the left is because in making your application, you have to describe your research project, but you also have to write what's called a personal statement. And I think that's one of the things that particularly people with a strong research background who've come through the academic research selection processes will perhaps sometimes struggle a little bit, because this, in your personal statement, you're asked to be a little bit more personal about yourself and to describe, as I say, your own personal background and how you will connect culturally, if you like, with the colleagues and hosts in the US, and also then what, as I say, you'll bring back culturally from the US to Ireland. So I think that that whole sort of cultural and broader aspect of the Fulbright process is definitely one of the more interesting aspects, but it's also a potentially challenging one for traditional academics. In addition to that, then one is expected to get a statement of support from your host institution. So we can see here that I got a very strong letter of support from colleagues in Oklahoma as part of my application. And then on the right here, just this is a reminder to myself to tell you about the preparation that they do for you before you go. So if you are successful in getting a research as Fulbright scholarship, you'll actually get a briefing session here in Ireland over Ireland was over a couple of days. Really did a lot of valuable, gives a lot of valuable information in terms of preparing for our trip to the US. So as I say, this is Oklahoma City, where the Health Sciences Center is based. Oklahoma, again, is a city I knew little or know nothing about, but of course I've learned a lot having been there. It's a very interesting place. You can see here there's a monument to the Oklahoma City bomb, which was one of their major catastrophic events in their history. Further back in history then, it was a place where they had the land run, as it was called, and I said there were a lot of interesting things to learn about a part of the world that I knew little or nothing about before I went. Sorry, no. And sorry, again, as I say, in addition to Oklahoma City, there's quite a lot to see in the state of Oklahoma as well. And again, I took the opportunity to travel around the state when I was there. In fact, I used some of my research to meet up with family doctors throughout the state. And again, I was very glad I did that, because I've got to see a wider perspective on the whole of Oklahoma. In addition to that, I just want to mention that if you are successful in getting a scholarship, you may also be invited to what Fulbright called an Enrichment Seminar. And in my case, the Enrichment Seminar took place in Huntsville, Alabama. We also visited Birmingham, Alabama. And that was a very seminal part of the whole experience, because it was an opportunity to meet with other Fulbrighters who'd come from other parts of the world, and to be introduced to a sort of a wider perspective on academic and cultural life in the US. And if you get such an opportunity, I would strongly encourage you to take it up. So as I say, I had to construct a research project and around opioids. So I again got the opportunity when I was there to make a number of presentations, scientific presentations, where I talked about what I'd learned about the opioid crisis in the US, but also to give them an Irish perspective. And again, I was very encouraged by the fact that colleagues in the US were very interested in the broader aspects of healthcare delivery and how we do research in healthcare in Ireland. And as I say, it was again a lot more broader aspects to this than I perhaps anticipated before I went. So I was able to focus on quite a lot more than just the opioid research that I was doing. And again, as would be expected, but it certainly has happened that I've managed to continue this collaboration. We've made a number of presentations now, including, say, for example, this one to the North American Primary Care Research Group in Chicago about our opiate research. And in fact, there's a project that's just taken off over the last year or so, continuing the work that I initiated there around helping family doctors in the US improve their opioid prescribing and delivering more appropriate care to patients. So there's a Rise OK project that's continuing now that I'm involved in back in Oklahoma. So as I say, just in terms of making an application and hopefully being successful in your application for a Fulbright scholarship, there are a few tips that I would give. First of all, because of this, as I say, broader aspect of things, it's not just about you as an academic, but it's about you as a person. It's important to spend some time reflecting on who you are and indeed what you have to offer to a broad program like this. As I say, it's a two-way street, if you like, so it's very much about what you can get out of Fulbright, but also what Fulbright and your host institution can get from you. And they will be looking for more than just your academic input, but also your personal and cultural input. So your Irishness, if you like, is an important part of the offering, and as I say, part of the selection process. And certainly when you go to the US, there is some attention to what specifically is interesting and education, if you like, about meeting with Irish people. And again, as Dara's mentioned, this is an ongoing engagement as well. So once you become a Fulbrighter, you can continue to meet up with Fulbright alumni. Like myself, I've taken on a role as a Fulbright ambassador within my own institution. When it comes to making the application, as I just mentioned, the personal statement is probably something that you may find a little bit different from other kind of applications you've made. And it's certainly not a rewording to your CV. And just to illustrate that a little bit, I mean, what I talked a little bit about was my own background from having grown up in Northern Ireland during the time of the Troubles, and I suppose what that taught me about the world and the need for interaction between peoples, which of course is a fundamental principle of the Fulbright endeavour as well. As I say, it's important to start your preparation early. So I went in 2017, but in fact, the process of preparing for this started probably in earnest when I met with Professor Benfield back in 2015. When it comes to your application, again, it's a very detailed application, and it's important that you write and rewrite your application. And one of the things that I got very helpful was some input from other Fulbright alumni and other critical friends. I suppose the other thing that I was aware of as well was that a few of my medical colleagues that had been on Fulbrights had mostly gone to Boston and New York and places like that where there's already a strong Irish connection. But I was very glad I went somewhere quite different. And one of the things I encountered when I was in Oklahoma was described to me as cowboy culture. And again, I can strongly recommend it. It's something very different. And again, I can only just encourage as strongly as possible to go for it. Even if you're not successful in getting a Fulbright award on your first go, it's still a useful experience to help you to reflect on your own life and your own work and what you are as a person. And as I say, again, as Dara will probably tell you, if you're not successful, it's worth trying again. And that's me. Of course, we'll welcome questions later on if you have them.
Colin, thank you very much for that. Very much appreciated. I would say to anybody watching back on this recorded video, probably look at his last slide about tips. Some very good ones there. I think you've captured the essence of the application and the way to do it. And I think that personalization of it is very important and probably not something people are typically familiar with. So As an ambassador, Colin is engaged with us, and we have another ambassador as well on the call, and Dr. Olga Piskareva. Thank you, Olga. I'll hand it over to you now.
Hi, everyone. So I also have some slides to share, and very thankful for the invitation to share my experience. As Colin said, he pointed out to many important things, what you need to consider for your application, who you are, whether you should play Irishness as a card when you apply. I played a different card, as you can appreciate. Obviously, I have two cultural backgrounds at least. So one of them is Irish, where I spent all my professional career, and the other one is Russia, where I was born. So that was one of my cards to play when I applied for the Fulbright award. And also, I would say to everyone, first of all, think about this as a big cultural experience, and that would also help you to shape your statement for the application, but also, more importantly, enjoy what you do when you are in the States. So my journey started, I would say, a couple of years before I applied for the award, and I met an academic at one of the conferences, and they did some interesting research, which I thought would be really good to apply to my study. And my focus is childhood cancer, particularly neuroblastoma. This is very, very aggressive solid tumor in children, which contributes disproportionately to childhood cancer-related death. So, and I thought that it would be nice to apply different concepts which were developed for adult cancers than to study childhood cancer. So our connection started with this academic at the conference, and I started to look for different opportunities to visit their lab. And you would probably appreciate, for those who are definitely at least 10 years plus after their PhD thesis submission, that it's not easy to find a travel fellowship that you would be eligible to apply. So that prompted me to look wider for something which is not just academically based. And this way I found the Fulbright program and applied and was successful. And of course, I really, really enjoyed the moment when I got an email in my box saying that we are happy to inform you that you won this award. And we were we met at the US Embassy in Dublin, and you will see here another 3 awardees who were from the same college as I am. 2 of us received Fulbright HRB HealthImpact Scholar Award. So I'm in the middle in the red dress. So here, where is my journey started to build up in sense of the reality rather than just an application and a hope. So I went to Baltimore. The flight was just 6 hours in duration, though of course my flight was much longer because I had a connection flight. But when I selected the academic and the lab to go and where it is, I didn't know much about this city. So though probably some of you may know more about Baltimore, but back then I knew only one Baltimore, a small city on the West Cork of Ireland. And so apparently there is a bigger one, maybe a twin city in the States. So I traveled there from my loved Ireland for 4 months. This is Johns Hopkins University, where the lab that I visited is located. And I joined a very nice and very dynamic team with lots of expertise, which helped me to build up on what I've know and learn lots of different other things. So from the professional perspective, I've gained a lot of knowledge, and of course it was brilliant, all I learned. But saying that, we also had a very nice social activities. And as you can appreciate on this image at the back, we actually visited Guinness Brewery, which was recently opened near Baltimore. And this is a small experimental one, not sibling, the child of our bigger Guinness distillery, which is located in Dublin. So they had lots of different sorts of different Guinnesses, from pink to black, and it is fantastic. So what I really did, and now I think it's really paid off, I recorded my journey. I recorded my feelings, not in the full extent, of course, but just some key points, some most interesting things which happened to me during the week. And I posted it in my blog. You will see it on top, so you can go and read lots of things about my cultural and academic experience over there, and also what is going on now. And I thought that it was one of the greatest things that I've done, because now I can go back, reread it, and kind of time travel back to the times when I was in the States. So, and of course, as I said, I covered in this blog different aspects of my journey. But also what I want to say is that this academic connection also advanced not only my learning and understanding, but we also brought our data to the final thing in any academic career. So we published the paper based on the results which I obtained while being in the States. So it was a great experience from every aspect. But what is even more interesting, how the connection between my two cultural backgrounds and the States happened, and was to some extent conceived simultaneously. So while I was writing the application for the Fulbright program, a guy on this picture actually decided to study Russian and visited my home city. On the picture next to him, you see my mom. So my mom was a host family for the foreigners who are coming to Russia to study Russian. So, and you know, he was studying Russian. I was waiting for the results of Fulbright competition. And when I've got them, I text my mom saying that, "Oh, Mom, I'm so delighted. I'm going to the States." And of course, she immediately shared her good news with her guy who stayed back then, and his name is Trevor. And he said, "And actually, where is she going?" And so then we started to communicate and figure out that he's actually, his parents actually are living near Baltimore, and they wanted to meet me. And that's how our connection started. And on this image, you will see his big family of aunts and uncles, and these two are his parents. So who actually became they adopted me, and who became my American family while I was staying with in the States. To go deeper is that I've got absolutely fantastic family-based experience, because they let me their car for the duration of the stay in the States. I lived in the sister, the lady in red and the guy in the back, in their house during my visit in the States. So I've got completely full submerging experience of how to live as a, let's say, as a researcher in the States in this short span of period. So I also visited many interesting places with them and attended all their family dinners on Sundays. So I've never felt alone. And we are still, actually, we're still communicating, we're still sending good wishes to each other. And the final point in this cultural exchange was that then next year, when I came back to Ireland and then went to Russia to visit my mom, they actually bought trip to Russia, and we then met all families together. So my mom, Trevor, me, my son, my brother, and also Trevor's parents, we met in Moscow nearly a year after I completed my Fulbright journey. So I had extremely true cultural and professional experience, and I couldn't recommend more to apply for the Fulbright program. I can't guarantee you that you will find or will be adopted by the American family, but who knows? So sometimes some paths are intersect, and you can find absolutely amazing things and unpredictable in something very simple. So thank you very much for your attention, and I'm absolutely happy to answer any of your questions.
Olga, thank you very much. I think people can get a view for why Fulbright program is such a long-lasting program, is that it's about the work you do, but it's about the connections and the experience you have, and that's what really makes it an enduring program. I'm just going to return to my presentation now. I think this is the right one here. Okay, so just going back to then about the program there, hopefully you can see that it's a worthwhile program to apply for. I have often said that actually, ostensibly there's no reason you shouldn't apply for it. It's not even should you apply for it, but there's no reason you shouldn't. And many applicants and awardees do say that there aren't really any downsides. It's just giving up some of your time, but the outcome, even if you're not successful, the outcome and the value to yourself tends to be very high. And the information and the thinking you do can be used and reused. If you're not successful, apply again. People do, and very often are successful. So you learn as you progress. Just in terms of the application timeline, well, they will open, the awards will actually open on the 31st of August, and that's when we will have all the definitive awards on the system. We will be going ahead with the HRB HealthImpact Award anyway. It closes then at the end of October. Over November, December, we would have peer review of your application, which looks at the technical aspects, but also at all the personalized, the personal information that you provided and why you want to apply for a Fulbright Award. And then if it's successful at that stage, you'll be called for interview in January to February. And we will be making offers at the end of February, early March. So now the things you can do is obviously have a look at our website. There's an awful lot of information there, as Roman will attest, as he manages most of it. Choose the award that you think best fits. Sometimes it's not always the most obvious award for you, but choose the award that you fit. Find maybe a course or plan a project in the States, or plan a project that you want to go ahead with. Also, please look at what it means to be a Fulbrighter. It's not just about the Fulbright ethos, but actually the type of people and things you want to do and the passion that we want to understand, because we're looking for people who are engaged, and register your interest on Fulbright.ie. Establishing your eligibility. Irish awards are open to EU and EU citizens, people who have been working in Ireland for more than 3 years, or resident in Ireland for more than 3 years. Please demonstrate a strong rationale for where you're going to in the US. As Colin aptly said, a lot of people tend to take a focus and say, well, I want to go to an Irish enclave somewhere. Actually, don't. Go to Oklahoma, go to Colorado, go to Montana, go to other places, get a real US experience. You don't have to go and join an Irish Gaelic football club in Harvard University. You might start one in Oklahoma City, or New Mexico. So consider where you're going to. You may find that you have to go to Harvard or to an Ivy League, and that makes sense. Just bear in mind, we will scrutinize that, probably more closely. Whereas if you identify that you need to go to, the University of Florida to study something there, we'll say, okay, maybe you've considered why you need to go. It's not just, I want to go to a nice place, but that prove the point that why you really need to go. So have a strong rationale. There is a 2-year home rule visa requirement. So if you ever wanted to go back to the States, particularly for a longer term, not on a holiday, but for a longer term visa, you would have had to spend 2 years back in Ireland at some point. And this is part of the whole J1 visa requirement. You cannot be a dual US Irish citizen. That starts taking some of the point of cultural engagement out the equation. You cannot be living in the US at the time of application, and you cannot have recent extensive experience of studying or living in the US. If you have any doubts about that, reach out to us. There tends to be a lot of flexibility around that, and it might be that you did some work there some years ago, but it's not relevant now. So if you have any queries about that, please reach out to the Commission. Have a look at the award categories. There are main categories here. I think we're probably today talking specifically about Irish Scholar Awards. If anybody feels that they're more appropriate for a student award, so they're doing postgraduate research or postgraduate degree program, please check through on the website. Again, there's a lot of information there that's quite accessible. Today, I suppose we're specifically talking about Irish Scholar Awards. I say scholar, but it's academic and professionals. So for some of the people on the call, I think this is a very important point. There are other awards, the Irish Tech Impact Awards as well. I think for some of the people on the call, they might be worth looking at as well. So you can apply for an all disciplines type of scholar award. You can apply for a Health Impact Award. You might find that your work actually fits, even if you come from a healthcare point of view, but you might actually want to engage with the EPA. So there's a lot of flexibility on this. And the Health Impact Award that we have with the HRB is quite flexible. We're very interested in people. That's where it really comes down to, is people, and the work you might do and where you fit into the award program can be a lot more flexible. And there's other types of awards there. I don't think you'll be looking at the Teaching Irish Awards, but you could look at as well the Schumann Awards. They open in December and they run through the Belgian Commission. They tend to be higher level, but for policy types of programs, we have had actually a lot of healthcare applications in that space as well. I think they open on the 5th of December. But again, please go to the website to find out more information on that. So today we're specifically kind of focused on the award we have with the Health Research Board. It's for professionals or academics with 5 years plus experience. You're going from Ireland to the US. Duration is for 3 to 6 months. So I think most people can fit that into their busy schedules, and it's for Irish and EU citizens. But at this point, I just want to take the opportunity then to introduce one of our partners from the Health Research Board, Dr. Anne Cody. Thanks, Anne.
Thanks, Dara. We've been working with the Fulbright Commission for the last 4 years, I think, on these joint awards, and it's been a really interesting experience. It's something that I think offers fabulous opportunities, and I would really like to thank Olga and Colin for sharing their experiences here today. I loved that story about your adoptive US family as well. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it? To be open to all sorts of experiences. And once you're open, things will happen. And that's sometimes you're not able to script that exactly, but it's a really important part of it. So we've been co-funding with Fulbright for these awards for a number of years now, and we've funded 16 fellows so far, and the feedback from them has been really, really positive. And a lot of that is, yes, around the professional impact that may have had. There's been papers published and research advanced and new collaborations initiated that carry on long after a visit. But really a lot of it is also around the personal development and the interactions with colleagues and acquaintances and random encounters across the US. what I'd really like to emphasize is that, yes, the Fulbright HRB Health Impact Award is open to health researchers. And we have a very broad definition of health research. So, you know, there's a lot of, it certainly includes also population health and health services research. There are areas that we're very interested in, not just health professionals as such, but health researchers in a broad sense. And unusually, and that's something I'd like to emphasize here, unusually this award also supports health research managers. So people who don't necessarily carry out research themselves, but are kind of in the middle of coordinating an award or coordinating a research endeavor. And there are people that don't often get personal awards themselves, but given that the remit of this includes things like implementation research and health research policy and research management in a healthcare setting, and the development and implementation of institutional health research strategies, public and patient involvement in health research, you know, you can see quite a broad spectrum there. Of areas that are particularly suggested, and obviously, you know, sort of the you've heard from Olga and from Colin their own research perspectives. So please go and share with colleagues who may not have been able to attend the webinar and see if they might be interested in having a go for one of the future calls.
And thank you very much. Appreciate that. As you can see, we have a slide even to that underpins exactly what you just said there. We're, you know, and I'm very strongly endorsing exactly the same point. We do want applications from administrators, from managers, looking at health research policy, managing hospital programs, any of that kind of activity. You know, we're very, very strongly promoting that. That's what Fulbright is about. It's about professionals as well, not necessarily coming directly from an academic program. So please do consider that yourselves and pass it out to your colleagues as well. Thank you, Anne. That's exactly what I was going to say in that slide. And just mentioning some of the awardees then and the breakdown from where they come from. Obviously, you've met Olga and Colin here, and there's a number of there are a number of other awardees as well. So the program has been, this part of the program has been very successful. We've had some great Fulbrighters who are fully engaged with the program, who've gone on to do great things, had you know, an excellent experience. Even people who, you know, a lot of people might have spent some time at States, have some experience. But going on the Fulbright program was very different. It's very different from, I think, how they considered themselves going abroad to the States and how they were treated there as well. So it's, I think the Fulbright aspect and the ethos of you're there to engage, not just to turn up at a research seminar or give a paper and leave. That it's a lot more, you're there to meet with the people and create long-term kind of relationships. So some other, just a brief about, I guess, some of the other programs there. I would consider that you might have a look at the ICT aspect of the Tech Impact. And I say ICT, you may not be the ICT person, but that the work you want to do has an ICT requirement that maybe somebody in the States has access to, so you can go and work with them as well. So again, I would have a look at that. It tends to be, it's a special award we have. I don't think any other commission has anything like it in the world. So it's aimed for short-term interactions for people maybe can't take their foot off the pedal for that long, but it's the initiator of hopefully of a more ongoing basis. Then you can apply, if not through the Health Impact Award, you can also apply as a scholar. You can still apply, many do apply just as through the All Disciplines program. Again, with people who are applying from many other disciplines, but you might consider that you want to go for a longer period and consider applying through that program as well. Again, I keep saying that Fulbright.ie, there's a lot of information there that you can find. I'm not going to go through all details today. If you think that actually you're more relevant as a student for your application, Again, you can look at the all disciplines, and many healthcare researchers, in particular student researchers on doing PhDs in healthcare, do apply disciplines program for students. We have a number of different types of programs here. The interesting thing is, you know, people will often look at someone like Teagasc and go, well, okay, I'm in healthcare, that's nothing to do with me. Actually, there's an awful lot of overlap between that in food science and other areas that, of interest. So I'm saying don't pigeonhole yourself immediately. Go and do some research. That's part of, you know, the program. That's part of the planning we were talking about at the beginning. Please look at what you can apply for. It may turn out that the HRB HealthImpact Award is most relevant to you, but don't immediately decide that you're not relevant to some of the other programs there. Sometimes, so that's the hint there, be strategy aware and be innovative. So have a look at other strategies and see where maybe you fit in that. Maybe you'll stand out as well. So the applications requirements, you will need personal information and a CV. Your personal statement, that Colin said, don't rehash. You know, it is very much about you. We're very much, that's the part we're most interested in, is the part, and I guess it confuses people sometimes when they're in an interview in particular, they're asked about themselves, not about the work, and they're trying to speak about themselves through the prism of their work. You know, for a lot of us, that's the way we've professionally developed, but actually we're looking to find out about you, not through the prism of your work. You'll have to develop a project statement, get your 3 recommenders, get your transcripts for if you're a student applicant, passport copy, samples of your work for, if you're an artist, we would require that, and letters of affiliations for research or scholars. So we want to know that you don't necessarily have them immediately upon application, but you would need to have them through the earlier to mid stages of the process. So that's where somebody guarantees that they'll give you space and that they will welcome you there. You may, if you're a student applicant, you may not know that you're being approved on a course, but at least have some back. Go for your study or research objectives. You know, your rationale for why the USA, not just where in the US, but why the US, why not Germany or Sweden or somewhere like that. And then a big part is what impact will this have on the discipline? You know, why is it of value? What impact will it have maybe on the research or the work you're doing, and actually your career? You know, and it's a win-win-win situation. So please talk about where this will help your career and drive forward and the passions that you would have. And when you are writing your personal statement, by the way, you know, if you are a world-class tiddlywinks player, these are things we want to find out about as well. So we're very interested. Colin mentioned talking about where he came from, you know, and Olga talked about the Russian aspect of our program. We really want to know about you as a person. That gives, you know, the more rounded view of a Fulbrighter. And that's where Fulbrighters tend to become quite well-rounded people, you know, who have a broad spectrum of interests and passions and connections. Personal statement, tell us about you personally. You know, it's not just a rehash of your CV, but tell us about you. We're very much, you know, like everybody else in the sense, but we've been doing this for quite a while, to be fair to us. You know, we've been always looking for candidates from underrepresented sectors in communities, areas of research or organizations. You know, HEIs, where you come from, where you're going to, the institutes or the companies maybe that you represent as well. So if you're coming from a hospital, that in itself is probably underrepresented. If you're coming from another research organization, that's again underrepresented. Ethnicities and abilities, these are all things. But share this with us. You know, you can decide how much you want to share, but if it's a part of you where you're coming from, then absolutely put this there. You know, and I will say that we probably do have a positive bias for underrepresented. So we've been saying a long time for diversity and inclusion to work, you have to bring some positive bias to that. So we still do, and we put together some equity steps as well to try and help where you might struggle. If somebody feels that they might struggle to take the opportunity, we have some equity steps in place as well. Finding a host, you know, Colin said it, I'm saying it very strongly, and the reviewers and interviewers will say, where are you going to? You know, it's not just I want to go to an Ivy League and get a Fulbright, 2 big ticks in the box. It has to make sense. So consider where you want to go. And it should really make sense to you why this is of value to the work and where you want to go and promote the area of research that you want to promote. The review, well, I suppose the bigger part of the technical review at the beginning will look at your academic record and your project statement. I say academic record, but it's not necessarily just an academic record, but it's the work you've done. And, you know, so if you're coming more from a professional point of view, well, it's the impacts and where you've been involved and the aspects of the work that you've done. Then we'll also want to look at your engagement and where maybe you've shown leadership and when you get to interview, then that flips on its side and you'll be talking to a non-discipline specific non-experts. So you have to be able to explain to them, you know, in a simple sense, what the work you're doing and the value of the work you're doing. But then they'll very much ask you about yourself and the passions you have and where you want to go. And, you know, it can be quite an enjoyable interview actually for people because they get to talk about themselves. For some people, that's possibly their favorite subject. And for the people who their favorite subject is talking about their research, then you will struggle because you will be asked more about yourself. So, and not about yourself through that prism of research, you know. So Fulbright Awards are really about people and their engagement, you know, and if you're passionate and engaged, well, then the research you're doing in the healthcare setting or whatever setting will actually benefit hugely from it because that's how it develops. You never research in isolation, you research with global community. You best research with a global community. Just a final comment to say that it's a two-way street. So we have US awardees come to Ireland, the students, scholars. We have specialists that are a short-term type of award. There's a global scholar award for Americans come to maybe Ireland and go to a number of other European countries. And then the Schumann Awards that I spoke about, you can encourage. So through all of these programs, you can encourage US colleagues to come to your institution. Awards as an institution. And I say institution in a broad sense here, like Science Foundation Ireland, for example, are an institution who were successful 2 years ago in bringing a US specialist. I think it was the first award they ever got as an organization to bring somebody to work with them. So there's a broader remit for that. So you might consider that you want to bring a US specialist to your institution. To some extent, you're pushing an open door there because many Americans, particularly at an academic or a high level of research or education engagement, having a Fulbright is part of their tick box on their bucket list. So you're pushing an open door. They'll get it. Even if they don't know your institution, they will get what it is you're talking about doing. So, and I just talking about that there. So it's currently open. Please look at the website. I'm not sure everybody will have received the invite to apply, but please look at the website there. Rowan, this is something we might also send around to the people on the call here as well, if you represent an institution. So even if you don't apply, or even if you are applying, you can also in parallel encourage Americans to come over to your country. So next, really, as we come to the end of this conversation, is to reach out and look at what we're doing here. I think one of the key things is actually talk to a Fulbrighter. If you can identify a Fulbrighter, there's 2 on the call here today, and there are a number of other ambassadors across different institutes. You can obviously go onto our website and see who also has worked, not necessarily even in your area, but who's just really gone through the Fulbright program and the process. And, I think both Olga and Colin, hopefully you can nod your head and say, it is a reasonably unique type of experience and a lot more personalized than maybe you would typically expect to have. So it's certainly worth a call. And I think you'll find most or all Fulbrighters very encouraging of the program and to apply for it, because of the development and personal aspects and the real value that comes to your discipline and your research areas. So all of this information is there. I think I would always say go back to fulbright.ie. When in doubt, start there. End of this presentation. I just wanted to say thank you to all of the people on the call. Great to have interest. Wanted to thank Dr. Anne Cody from the HRB for not just coming on the call, but for their continued support and review and an examination of the program. And, HRB do, they annually invest their interest in this program, and and I think it's been a very worthwhile partnership. So thank you. Just to record that, Anne, just to say thank you very much. Also, thanks very much to Olga and to Colin for again giving their time. Perfect example of the Fulbright family and the continued engagement that they will actually give up their valuable time at lunchtime to come and to encourage other people to do what they've done. And thanks also to Rowan for organising this. And I know, Anne, you were involved in the outreach as well to push this. So to anybody else who's been on this call, this information will be available. But if you have colleagues who missed it, obviously they can look at this recording. But I think also send it to Fulbright.ie. And hopefully you've gone away from the point thinking, okay, this could be for me. I'll do some further research and see where we go. So I think, Rowan, there's nothing else we need to add at this point. So I'm going to finish up on everybody's lunchtime and say thank you very much. And hopefully we'll see you on the flip side.